Reconnecting to and recalibrating our relationship with anger is essential as we heal from trauma. We say no to the forces that have oppressed or harmed or neglected us, and yes to all of the new experiences in our life that promote our well-being, our vitality, our sovereignty, and our freedom. And it's really interesting when we begin this journey of reconnecting to our anger. It can feel confronting and wrong and bad because most of us don't have a map for what healthy expressed anger looks like. So either we've learned anger is wrong and bad and we should never ever be angry, or we've learned that anger is really harmful and it hurts people, that it's aggressive. And actually, healthy anger is neither of these things. Healthy anger is the expression of a boundary that says no to threat, exclusion, harm, any of the things that hurt us or oppress us. And we can find ways to channel our anger in ways that are peaceful and powerful and not aggressive or harmful. Yet it can feel really impossible to do that when we're holding suppressed anger or even rage inside our body. So when we're triggered, we feel that surge of aggressive anger and we want to run from it because we know that it will harm people. And so learning to connect to it and discharge it in ways that are healthy and safe is really important, not only for our healing, but for going on to relate healthily in the world and to stand up for ourselves and say no to what doesn't serve us and yes to what does. And so in this practice, we're going to explore safely discharging anger in two different ways. I'm not going to guide you through an actual practice because unless you're actually feeling to or connecting to the anger, it can feel kind of forced or pretend. So it's important that when you go to process anger that you're actually really feeling it. And usually we'll feel it when something's come up in our life to trigger it. So connect to this practice and practice it sort of more to learn the technique. And when you do feel that you're ready to process, you can feel the charge of that anger, you can use these techniques or come back to this practice in your own time and space and see if you're able to process and safely discharge your anger. Something else that's really great about processing our anger is it really opens the doorway to connecting to our power. There's something very divine and powerful about welcoming our anger kind of under our wing or into our care. So today we're going to look at two different ways to release it. It's a very physical energy. So if we're holding anger sort of in our upper body, in our chest, our neck, our shoulders, our arms, usually we get this sort of bracing feeling of anger. Hey, we can actually learn to release it from the upper torso, down the arms and through the hands. And we're going to be using the wall as kind of a counterpoint to the tension to allow that energy to sort of become embodied through the body and then release. And then we'll be also exploring anger in the lower body, in the lower torso and down through the legs. And so we often hold anger in this sort of lower part of the body if we have been exposed to experiences of abuse or physical abuse, sexual abuse, these more physical types. And so we're actually going to be learning how to push the energy through the feet again into the wall. So these are both very gentle practices, but they can be quite powerful. And kind of the place where the charge releases is as you release from pushing against the wall, if that makes sense. And we're going to use the breath to connect to the anger in whatever place we're connecting to, whether it's the lower abdomen or the chest, the upper body. We're going to breathe in to connect and we're going to exhale to release. And so we're kind of pairing connecting to our breath and using our breath as a channel for release, as well as using the distal limbs to release tension and charge through the body. So there's a couple of parts to the process. Anger can be a very loud emotion. Some people when they're processing their anger feel the need to scream or sense almost like a bit of a growl or a snarl coming through the mouth. If you think about it, so often we don't express when we're angry, when we're pissed off with someone. We hold it in, we might even smile sweetly. And we are animals, and animals want to roar and they want to snarl. They might even want to bite or spit. And I think, when we create this very sacred space for healing for ourselves, it's really healthy to allow the body to express in all of these ways and let it go. Because when we're no longer holding it, we can learn to relate without that level of charge. So by connecting to that animalistic anger and letting it out, we create more of a space to then engage in a much more peaceful and powerful way. So as you practice, when you do go into your practice, see what it's like to invite these experiences that are very felt, very animalistic, to come through in ways that feel safe. The first time that you do connect to anger in this somatic way and let it out, if it's totally new for you, it might feel overwhelming. And so if that's the case, it's really important to be able to care for yourself by coming into the inviting safety practice, coming onto your side, with a pillow and a blanket and protecting yourself and allowing that integration, or by coming onto your stomach and using the ground to support you to ground. So please only enter this practice if you feel like you have the capacity and the accountability to really keep yourself safe and allow that time to integrate. If you go into a heightened state of anger release and you don't allow that time for integration, it will potentially color the way you go on and engage in the world after. So please be very, very reverent with this practice. So I'm going to show you now the two different ways that you can sort of position the body to begin to release the charge. And the affirmation that we pair with this is, I welcome anger. I welcome my anger in ways that do not harm myself or anybody else. I release it from my body. Isn't that beautiful? What would our world look like if everybody learned to do that? So different. So you can do this either standing or sitting or kneeling. For the sake of today, I'm going to kneel. And what you're going to do is find a distance where your arms are straight and you have a little bit of room to push. And so during your practice, you're going to breathe in to connect with the anger. And so it's almost like you're stoking a fire. So you're using your breath to stoke the fire of your anger, and you can breathe in and out a few times. And when you're ready, you can exhale through an open mouth and push into the wall. And of course, I'm not processing anger in this moment. I'm just showing you the technique, but you will breathe in and out, stoke the fire. And as you're ready to release, you'll breathe through an open mouth and push. And what you'll feel is some tension and maybe even shaking. And it's when you let go that actually there'll be a lot of energy release down through the hands and your palms. And you might feel like you're shaking and you might feel like you want to cry. And if you are shaking, it is important to come into that side lying position or go down onto your stomach and really just care for yourself. So that's how you'd work with your arms. You may also find that if there's a lot there, it may feel safe to work in very, very small little bursts. So it might just be one gentle release and you come into integration. And if you feel like you can handle a little bit more, you could go again, always coming back to the integration position. So to work with your legs, you're going to get reasonably close to the wall, lie on your back, and put your feet against the wall. And so very similarly, you're going to use your breath, this time breathing into the belly to almost stoke the fire of your anger. And when you're ready, when you can feel the anger, you can feel that felt sense and that charge, you can push and release through your feet. And again, there might be this shaking, and once you feel that tension, you can release. And again, you might feel this shaking in the legs, and if you do, it's time to come into integration. You may feel while you're doing it that there's so much power, so much anger or rage to release that you want to lift your buttocks off the floor. and that's okay too. And you may find that your hands naturally activate. So just do what feels right for you and safe. And again, you might like to titrate. So come into one expression of release and come into integration again. And remember to connect to the beautiful affirmation, the really empowering affirmation: I welcome my anger in ways that do not harm myself or others. I release it from my body. When you finish the practice, you might like to just sort of stay in that space of integration and inquire, how do I feel without this? So when we release emotion, there'll usually be a sense of change and space in the body. And so really take time to be with that and to tune in and feel, who am I now? How am I now without that particular layer of anger? And as you sort of exit the practice, you can invite that to integrate into your daily life. And it's pretty beautiful to watch the world morph and change around us when we're no longer holding on to so much anger as a result of our trauma.